Keir Starmer is facing the biggest crisis of his premiership. Not that you'd know it, because don't you think there's something really wrong with a person who has such little self-awareness that they either don't know they're the problem or they think we're too stupid to know that they're the problem? Because right now, Starmer's government of absolute incompetence is once again also a government of chaos.
That I wasn't told that it failed security vetting when I was telling Parliament that due process had been followed is unforgivable. Not only was I not told, no minister was told. And I'm absolutely furious about that. What I intend to do is to go to Parliament on Monday to set out all the relevant facts in true transparency so Parliament has the full picture.
Either he lied to Parliament about Mandelson's vetting, or he didn't lie, which means the most senior officials in the country didn't bother telling him about one of the most explosive security decisions in a generation. So which is it? A Prime Minister who lies, or a Prime Minister that is so irrelevant and so hollow that his own officials don't think he's worth informing? And that is something just as dangerous. Now, if you're anything like me and the leader of every other UK political party, you're probably sitting there thinking, both of those options should flat out end his career today. So let me take you through this step by step, because this story is layered and every single layer is worse than the last. So fact number one, he knew. Before Starmer appointed Mandelson, he was told explicitly that Mandelson's ties to Epstein posed, quote, a general reputational risk to the government. He knew beforehand in writing. A man who likes to boast and brag about being forensic, principled, and the resident grown-up in the room, and he went ahead anyway. He's already admitted on the record that he knew more about the Mandelson-Epstein connection than he originally let on. Fact number two, he lied. Mandelson then failed his enhanced security vetting. The security services flagged his Epstein ties as a serious risk, and the Foreign Office overruled them. Actually overruled the security services. And on February the 5th this year, only a couple of months ago, Starmer stood at the dispatch box and told Parliament that Mandelson had passed his clearance. Categorically untrue. How many times does a Prime Minister get to stand at that dispatch box and lie without consequence before anybody calls him out, before anybody holds him to account because he takes no notice? Fact number three, he sacked the wrong man. When it all unravels, what does Starmer always do? It's a pattern now. He reaches for the nuclear option. He reaches for the scapegoat. He did it with Morgan McSweeney. He did it with Sue Gray. And now it is Olly Robbins, the most senior civil servant at the Foreign Office, sacked within hours. Done, gone. Thrown under the bus to prop up Starmer's "it wasn't me, Gov" defence. But here's where it gets extraordinary, because Olly Robbins has an ally, a guy named Professor Kieran Martin, former head of the National Cyber Security Centre, former civil servant himself, a man who knows the vetting system inside and out. Well, he went on Radio 4 and he said, and I'm quoting him directly, "As far as I can tell from what little we know, there is no abuse of process. There is no failure of process." He went further. He said not only was Olly Robbins under no duty to tell Downing Street, there was a duty not to. A legal duty not to share vetting details. That is the system. That is how it's supposed to work. So Starmer didn't just sack an innocent man, he sacked a man for following the rules he's usually so anal about. So question, who the actual F is running this country? Because from where I'm sitting, it clearly isn't the Prime Minister. It clearly isn't Starmer. They obviously, whoever it is, need him there as the useful idiot. And boy, is he living up to their expectations. So now Robbins walks into the Foreign Affairs Select Committee next week, possibly with receipts, and I, for one, cannot wait for the fallout. This entire Starmer premiership is a slow motion car crash from beginning to end. The only problem is that it's you and me who are in the car. So fact number 4, well, he is hiding evidence. There's a second batch of files that are coming out, WhatsApp messages between Mandelson and senior figures in Number 10, and the government is desperate to keep them buried, refusing to release them, refusing to even describe what types of documents are being withheld. Kemi Badenoch has called for the immediate release of these documents, and rightly so, because Starmer won't even confirm whether he spoke to Mandelson before the appointment. A basic question about his own pick, his own call, and he won't answer it as usual, with no consequences, as usual. Sir Michael Ellis, the former Attorney General, and by the way, 17 years as a criminal barrister, has looked at the government's excuse of, quote, we can't release them because it might prejudice a future trial. And he's called it out for what it is, absolute BS. Flat out, he says there's unlikely to be any justifiable reason for secrecy. Basically, the government is using the legal process yet again. Whenever the shit hits the fan, Starmer hides behind process. He says they're using it as a smokescreen. Now, Parliament, guys, let me just remind you, is superior to the courts, despite what Tony Blair tried to do. Its full name is the High Court of Parliament, and Starmer is trying to brazenly defy it, right? Again, he always gets away with it. He's trying to hide his own mess behind the process, and with no accountability, no scrutiny. He gets away with it time after time. If those documents were clean, why is Starmer so desperate to keep them hidden? Have a watch of this.
And do you feel confident you can ride out this storm?
Well, the original, there was a due diligence exercise that culminated in questions being asked. Because I wanted to know the answer to certain issues, that's why those questions were asked. The answer to those questions were not truthful. There was then, I should add, security vetting carried out independently by the security services, which is an intensive exercise that gave him clearance for the role, and you have to go through that before you take up the post. Clearly, both the due diligence and the security vetting need to be looked at again. I've already strengthened the due process. I think we need to look at the security vetting, because it now transpires that what was being said was not true. And had I known then what I know now, I'd never have appointed him in the first place.
Absolute liar, coward, exposed. Did you hear that? He stood there again with his pre-prepared answers, his spin doctor script, hiding behind, I didn't know. The man who runs this country didn't know. Can you imagine Margaret Thatcher not knowing about the most important diplomatic appointment in a generation? And he just expects us to accept it, to move on. Nothing to see here. Not a chance, mate, let me tell you. Now, let's talk about the hypocrisy, because this man has got to be one of the biggest hypocrites that's walking the earth. He spent years screaming for other people's resignations. Boris Johnson, Partygate, all we heard week in, week out was resign, 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 week in, week out. He even updated, guys, the Ministerial Code last November. He called it proof of his belief that public service is a privilege. He seems to have forgotten that. And these are his words, the highest standards that the British people expect. And Kemi Badenoch, thank God, is doing exactly what he did to Boris, holding him to his own standard. And she put it simply, in fact, perfectly. She said, if he's not lying, he's grossly incompetent and not fit to run the country. I mean, look at the way he flew off into the arms of Macron today to co-host a Zoom meeting, a virtual meeting with the leaders of other nations about the Strait of Hormuz. Why did he have to do that? It was a virtual effing meeting. He could have done that in the UK. He is a coward. Kemi also added that he is falling well short of the standard he set for Johnson. And she's right. Nigel Farage went further. He said that Starmer has misled Parliament. He's lied to the public. Enough is enough. Starmer has to go. And do you know what? For once, he is absolutely correct. Because this, guys, isn't just a political scandal, right? This is a window into a prime minister who is not fit to lead, right? Who U-turns so often they've called him a human centrifuge. He was asked this week whether he'd prioritise defence or welfare, and his spokesman said, and I promise this is real, it's not a zero-sum game. On the biggest financial question facing the country in decades, nothing. Starmer is dishonest, he's weak, and transparently unfit for the office that he currently holds. You know, he lied about the vetting, he sacked a man for following the rules, he's hiding WhatsApp messages from Parliament, and he hasn't got the spine to answer a straight question. This isn't just a mistake, this is a full-blown cover-up. It's a scandal. When Olly Robbins walks into that select committee next week, this gets much, much worse, and I cannot wait. Before I go, today's tweet of the day, this one caught my eye. Alex Armstrong of GB News writes, if it is somehow true that Keir Starmer wasn't told about Mandelson failing vetting, then he owes Liz Truss an apology. It'll be more evidence of the deep state Truss has spoken about. Difficult times for Labour supporters indeed. And that tweet was in fact a response to an ITV tweet about Ranveer Singh, which said about the whole Starmer debacle, I'm afraid it taps into that very deep feeling that the people we vote for are not the people who are running the country. The people we vote for are the front face, a shop window, but there are these unknown, unelected, highly paid, very influential people who are more powerful than the Prime Minister. We see the tip of the iceberg. We think we've got a democracy that's open and fair, and we don't. Ooh, trouble at mill. Right, that's it for now. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you turn on those notifications. Until next time, see you soon.